Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 19th day of November 2024. Let's now pay some attention to some of the tax proposals. And of course, we've been doing a bit of it here on Citizen TV, including what is becoming the introduction of the significant economic presence tax. This is something that had been proposed in the Finance Bill 2024. It's coming back, and this is going to affect non-resident persons, meaning organizations or individuals who are earning or making an earning from the Kenyan economy. And business on digital marketplace are going to be affected. For instance, the ride-hailing app. And I recall you were asking the National Treasury how that would be done. We'll be listening to a clip of what they said. And then for this significant presence tax to be effected, 10% of the gross turnover of these institutions is what is going to be treated as the taxable profit. And of course, this tax will replace what we now know as digital service tax from a rate of 1.5%. Is it 1.5% to 6%?
No, it's going to 3%.
3%.
The effective tax rate would be 3%.
Okay, all right. So we'll talk about much more later, but also we'll be listening to the Cabinet Secretary and the Principal Secretary at the National Treasury on how that will be affected. But Alex, when you look at that, I mean, what purpose does it serve compared to what has been proposed in Finance Bill 2024?
So I think this is something that is being carried on from Finance Bill 2024. So this is the same as what we had before, to basically try and increase revenue from digital service tax. And the wording is just meant to get to the 3% really. So we move from the 1.5% to the 3%, and we'll wait to see whether it works for the government in terms of increased revenues. Remember, with these particular bills, they are looking at raising 174 billion. 78, 74, I've seen 73. Yeah. So around that figure. So I think this is one of them where they hope to collect some money and increase revenues. Okay,
all right. We'll be listening to the Principal Secretary, but when it comes to implementation of it, how do you, for instance, if it's a taxi hailing app, how do you determine how much they're making?
I guess that's, again, a good question, because what they're planning to do is kind of deem an amount that you're making, like a percentage of your gross revenue, and deem that that is what they'll then subject to the DST. So I'm assuming they'll have to find a way to track how much is being made from your, for example, ride-hailing app. It's used in Kenya. And then they get to see how much you're making, and from that deem a particular amount as the 30% of your turnover, and then tax at the 10% to arrive at the 3%
So
DST.
Obviously, you're not targeting the driver, you're targeting the owner of the platform.
Exactly. And it is consistent. Remember, well, this is a change that is also happening globally. And the point is, you want to target people who do not necessarily have a presence in your country, yet they are deriving or accruing income from your country. So if other countries are doing the same, and ensuring that we are not looking just at a company that has been set up in our country, we're not just looking at a permanent establishment of a company that is operating globally, but we're also looking at how much is this company, which does not necessarily have a presence in our country, how much is it that is being derived from our country, and how do we get just a bit of it in terms of revenue. So I think that's the approach. Okay,
let's listen to the Principal Secretary and KRH Commissioner General on how exactly that will be done.
For a long time, they have not been paying taxes, and yet they operate in our jurisdiction. So it's not the Kenyans we are targeting in this. It is those who are in our jurisdiction, yes.
So what we are working on is, there are solutions, there are technology solutions out there that would allow us to have visibility into the transactions that happen within our own IP protocol space.
Abraham, how possible is that to go to our internet protocol and determine how much each ride-hailing app is collecting as revenue?
So I'm not too conversant with that kind of that detail. However, I think it's how it's going to be administered is what is going to be a bit of a problem. And even we can clearly see that they are not too sure how this is going to happen, even if they have been making proposals from the beginning in terms of we need to tax them. And rightfully say so, as the cabinet, as the Principal Secretary mentions, that yes, these people, they utilize infrastructure that other taxpayers are paying and using, but then they need to pay their fair share. But I think in the process of how they get to do it, I think that's what needs to be clearer in terms of what procedures will be taken.
Is it possible to scan our IPs?
Sam, this government, when they decide to act, they act fast, and I think you know. So I wouldn't be surprised that they would come up with systems to ensure that they know how much the guys who do not have a presence in Kenya and have digital platforms are making. They can get that in. I think I am convinced that if they want that information, they'll get it. Yes. Okay, interesting. Let's take a look at some more before I get to Mheshimiwa Kagusha here, because he has also been very vocal and strong on what he thinks about the tax laws amendment bill, especially. Let's take a look at that, which is to do with the minimum top-up tax, that if a business is paying tax that is less than 15%, then they'll have to account for the balance. In such a case that you have to look at the total tax that you've paid versus, divide by the total income that you made, make a percentage of that, which will be whatever it is. Then if it's less than 15%, then you're going to account for the balance. The other proposal is on VAT changes. There are several, but just to highlight a few. The air ticketing services given by travel agents will now be VATable from exempt to 16%. Entry fees to national parks and national reserves will be charged 16% after being exempted for some time. The tour operator services will now be VATable at 16%. Pest control products and fertilizers will be exempted from taxation, from VAT, as well as the raw materials in manufacturing them, and so many other proposals that I will be highlighting. Mheshimiwa Kagusha, what is your take on some of this? Because I saw you are opposed. You actually said that for the national reserves and national parks, which is really owned by the government of Kenya, how do you charge a VAT on a service from the same government, money going to the same government? Please elaborate on that.
Yeah, maybe just to start with this, the economic presence tax. What they're looking at is a 30% tax deemed as a taxable profit. So you're looking at the 30%, and I think in this case the taxable profit maybe will then be the 10% of the total income. Then they take 30% of that. Yeah, so the other issue, maybe just for the benefit of our viewers, is on that issue of the minimum top-up tax also. It's also important to look at the way the proposal is coming, that if you register a company out of this country, then you operate here, and maybe you are registering, let's say, in Mauritius or into any other country that is a tax haven, and that service you're offering here is taxable, then they will look at the tax that you're paying in that country where you have registered the country, your company, look at the difference, and you're supposed to top up that difference. You get me? So that is also important for our viewers to understand that...
Sorry, say that again.
There is an issue of people who register companies in the foreign countries because the service here is taxable.
Yep.
Let's say you want to do certain business in Kenya, but then you register a company out of this country where that particular service is not taxable. Then you do the business here in Kenya. So whatever you make here, and you have to repatriate back your profits, then you're looking at how much tax are you paying in that country, look at the difference with what Kenya is charging for the same service, then you pay the difference. So that is also meant to now ensure that you are not going to be registering a company outside to take advantage of the taxation laws in that country, yet you're doing business in Kenya.
Okay.
So that is important for our viewers to understand. Yeah, but then this amendment, the tax amendment bills of 2024 has quite a number of things. And Sam, if you can remember when we were here last, when we were looking at the finance bill, I think before people made noise, and before there was public pressure, we had a session here with you, where I highlighted a number of taxes which I really didn't believe in. And I remember you asking me whether I will vote blindly, even when those taxes are not touched. And I remember telling you...
Those are not my words, though, but carry on.
I remember telling you on this platform that this time round, I'll be more careful and will be more critical of those taxes that were being proposed. And indeed, I highlighted them. Remember, like the issue of the motor vehicle tax, the issue of the bread tax, the issue of eco tax, all those taxes. And then you remember eventually they were removed. But of course, by the time they were being removed, Kenyans did not want to hear anything of that finance bill. But here we are again. And I have again raised the issues which I believe in these tax laws do not need to be there and do not need to have been carried in this particular amendment. Definitely there are some of them which are good. There are some of the proposals which are good. For example, the proposal that we are going to ensure that these many levies and funds that the levies we are paying, the housing levy, the issue of SHA and the NSSF and all that, they're now going to be tax allowable. That is definitely a relief.
That's okay. We'll get to that. I just wanted to hear your views about some of those VAT proposals.
Yeah, but on the other issues, I have a big problem with the issue of the classification of supplies for school feeding programs from tax exempt to taxable items, because that definitely works negatively towards the school feeding programs that we are running in this country. So I do not think we needed to include that in these proposals. And I propose that we remove it, and I'll be proposing an amendment on that on the floor of the Parliament. Or we have the issue of imposition of excise duty on electric transformers and parts at 25%, which again I also think is going to make the cost of electrifying Kenya very high. And it works to the disadvantage of Kenyans to a big extent, especially where they want to industrialize and where they also need to be connected to power. Then we also have the issue of telephone and internet data services at 20%, the increase of duty in that. Again, that touches the core of every Kenyan, because when it comes to what we do on a daily basis, we use our phones. Young people, every other person, we do our businesses, most of the people using the data and also our telephones. So increasing duty on that is definitely a quick win for government. Is somewhere to collect more money very fast. But again, that one works more or less like fuel levy. I mean, it is going to increase
Have you been able to do maybe a tabulation of how much, if your data was costing you 500 shillings, what it means when that excess tax is raised?
I haven't done the tabulation. But again, remember, people are in different rates. I mean, they are in different arrangements. Some people are in postpaid, others are in prepaid. People are in different arrangements. But whatever arrangement you are in, a 20% increase is imposed. Then, of course, we have the issue of railway development levy, which is increasing from 1.5% to 2.5%. Again, the problem with this is that whereas the import tax, we've been using it to discourage imports by bringing on board taxation on certain things that can be manufactured locally. This one does not look at that. This one is universal.
You do recall that this is a levy that was reduced in the Finance Act of 2023.
Yeah.
Now it's being taken back to where it was.
It's being taken back to
and it affected almost all imports.
It affects
almost all products, including fuel.
Yeah. So that means, again, there's a very significant increase in terms of taxation, in terms of cost of doing business, and also in terms of even the price of goods that we are going to be having in this country. So that one is an important one.
Let me just stop you a little bit. You're talking about the school feeding program.
Yeah.
Which feeding programs are these that the government is targeting?
You're looking at the supplies for the school feeding programs. And the bill now says that you're looking at it, or you're removing from tax-exempt to taxable items. So I would believe maybe like supplies on cereals. You're looking at supplies.
I know that's what you're talking about. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
School feeding programs, which ones? Run by who?
Well, we have school feeding programs that are run by the government, but you also have also other school feeding programs that are run by NGOs and by other well-wishers in different areas. So, whereas
I thought some NGOs are tax exempt.
Yeah, but now when you introduce something in the finance bill, clearly indicating that you're going to now tax supplies to the food,
even for the government-run programs.
I want to believe so. If before you supplied cereals for those programs and you are tax exempt, now you're going to pay VAT. That makes it more expensive. Okay. So it means that you can only now provide, less service to this.
Okay, I'll get back to you. But Alex, your thoughts about that school feeding program, but also what is excess tax supposed to achieve when it keeps rising? Because it's been rising consistently every other financial year.
I think this one on the school feeding program, I must have missed it in terms of my analysis for the tax laws amendment bill. I didn't quite see it in terms of an amendment from a VAT perspective. I didn't quite catch it.
Okay. Maybe Mweshimiwa can help us locate it.
I didn't quite catch it. I'm looking at the tax laws amendment bill here with me. But anyway, okay. as we continue,
next one on excise.
I think I wanted on excise.
Yes, I asked you a question on what excise tax is supposed to achieve, because it keeps rising on very crucial services, including what is referring to as transformers.
Yeah. So when we started with excise taxes, and especially excise duty, because that is what we are talking about, the concept was you're using this as a sin tax to basically discourage certain use of harmful products or services or activities. So you'd target your beers, you target your cigarettes, your wines, and then I think as betting started and gaming, they started also targeting those ones. So the idea was to make sure that you discourage consumption of certain goods or services to protect the Kenyans. But as we have continued, we have seen government being quite, you don't know whether intention is actually an English word, but they are targeting the same places, and mainly because it is a low-lying fruit. It is easy to collect.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you increase the excise duty for cigarettes or alcohol, then you go target the guys who are manufacturing and tell them that, for example, the alcohol guys, if the product leaves your stockroom, we expect to collect excise duty in 5 working days. You see, for them, they need to have a license to continue doing the business. And if they don't comply, they risk their license. So if you then increase, you're actually putting them in a tight spot, and they're likely to comply and give you the money. Same to betting and gaming. So you do whatever you do with the excise for that particular area, and it is easy also to collect. So come to telephone and internet data services. I'm looking at the call for public participation, and they're saying they're reducing from 15% to 12%. But when I read the Tax Laws Amendment Act, I actually see an increase from 15 to 20, like Mweshimiwa was mentioning. So I don't know where the mismatch is. But there's also a lot of positive things within these tax laws amendment laws. Right. And I don't know whether if we have time, maybe a minute or two.
Yes, I'll give you that chance. But first, on the particular question of imported electric transformers and parts where they're proposing 25% of excise duty. So essentially, when you want to get connected to electricity, there's a fee you pay, but also it's the government that runs that program under the Parastatal Kenya Power Lighting Company. So what does this do?
I think that there's a mismatch. You're talking about connecting guys, the last mile project, ensuring that everybody is connected to electricity, and on the other side, also you're not, if you you are manufacturing a lot of the transformers within the country, it would make sense then to increase the duty or the excise duty for guys who are importing the transformers into the country. Basically, you're trying to protect the people who are doing it within the country. But if you do not have enough of those transformers yet, and I know it takes so long before, and this is something I know, yeah? So your transformer, for example, gets vandalized, you apply to KPLC to replace it. It takes a long time for them to actually come. And at some point, they were also complaining that there was a shortage of these transformers within the country. So then you increase the duty for guys who are importing. Maybe guys who are importing saw the need, and they decided to come supply those transformers. Then you now target them to increase the tax on that. Yet they are helping you address your own problem of connecting guys to electricity or replacing transformers that have been damaged or vandalized. It doesn't make sense.
And when it comes to tabulation, because it's a very complicated process and math, so 25%, it's 25% of what? What is the effective impact on the price of some of these goods?
It's quite a lot. So when you talk about 25%, I'm assuming you have the cost of purchasing that transformer from someone outside the country. So they'll sell it, say, to you at 100. Then you have your own local taxes. So 100 is what you pay to them outside there, out of the country. Then when that transformer is being shipped to your country, before it transits through the customs, then you're looking at the levies that we have just spoken about and the increase. You're talking about this excise duty. I've not checked. There could also be an import VAT of 16%. So at the end of the day, something that you actually bought at 100 is coming to your books at about maybe 200, or double the price. So from there, if you're just a person who is then supplying to the government, it means then you add your markup, then you sell it to the government. Remember, these transformers are not yours. You're probably trying to do deals with the government to supply to them because they're the guys who would perhaps buy them through KPLC. So it doesn't make sense then to increase the cost when this cost is the same cost that will be passed on to you. Because there's no way then when I have already imported this particular transformer, when I sell it to you, I sell it to a loss. I have to ensure that all these taxes that you have charged me, I recover them. And also I have to put on my markup and now make my money.
Okay. You've used a very interesting word. You're doing deals with the government. Abraham, so what does this do to the cost of living as we know it? Because, yeah, fine, finance bill 348 billion shillings worth of a bill was lost. Kenyans didn't want it. The government now wants 178 billion shillings, calling it a different name, but still looking like finance bill. This money is going to come from the economy, and it's Kenyans that are going to pay for it. When you look at some of these rates, what are your thoughts about the cost of living moving into the future?
So I think the context is really important, coming in from June, the context has really not changed much. What has really changed is that pay slips are being cut even further. The bottom line for most of the businesses are still suffering because most of the tax measures that were implemented from 2023 are still making sure that whatever you're taking home, your disposable income is still shrinking over time. And here we see proposals that still increase even further so you've already been taxed at the payslip level, but when you're coming to now consume or to spend on services and goods and services that are now being taxed, I think, as Alex said, if you're selling your transformers, you don't want to sell it at a loss. You have to recover. So even if you look at this significant economic presence tax, this is a tax that will perhaps even be transferred further to the consumer. So, and if you look at the majority of the people who use this, will use the taxi hailing companies. It's your taxed at your payslip, but even when you come to spend, the tax still goes even further. And we are seeing that really has a big implication on how we continue to spend. And also the burden, it's also good to highlight that the burden of these particular taxes are felt mostly by the people who are salaried, but also those who run businesses that are properly registered. Because the moment you are in one of those categories, then you are already, KRA already knows you exist. And therefore, for sure that is what. So there are others that may be operating outside, and KRA is really taking measures to try and increase the base. We see that these particular two categories are the ones who suffer the most, or bear the largest brunt when it comes to collection of these resources. Yeah.
I'm also looking at what is going to affect, I mean, coming from the excise tax, or what is going to happen to something like spirits and other alcoholic beverages. And Alex, I'm looking at proposed rate of 10 shillings per centiliter of pure alcohol. The current rate is 356.42 per litre. So a centiliter is 100th of a litre. So if 10 shillings per 100th of a litre, so a litre should be 1,000 shillings.
I haven't done the maths.
That looks like a lot of jump.
I haven't done the maths, but I've also not heard the guys within the industry talk much about the increase. But you mentioned it. Let me we have done an analysis as a firm of these two bills. So let me just look at that. In terms of spirit and other alcoholic beverages exceeding 6% alcohol, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. So they're talking about a proposed rate of 10 per centiliter of pure alcohol, vis-a-vis what was currently 356.42 Kenya shillings per litre.
Yeah.
I think when I look at the explainer from Parliament, they're talking about a decrease.
How is that a decrease?
I don't know about a decrease, and let me just look at it.
100th of a litre. We can do the math.
It's here, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. We can do the maths. It could be different things, and like we've pointed out, the one for excise duty and telephone and internet data services, we are talking about a decrease, and this one, like you're pointing out, is an increase.
Yeah.
But if it was a significant increase, like you say, I would have had already.
Okay,
in terms of the noise.
Let's do the math from the other side. So if a litre is attracting 356 shillings,
yes,
what would 100th of a litre attract?
100th of 3 shillings.
So 3 shillings versus 10 shillings. 10 shillings is higher than 3.
Oh yeah, sure.
But anyway, so Mheshimiwa Kagushia, talk to us. There are a few other things that you wanted to highlight from the bill.
Yeah, so we talked about the issue of RDL, that is the Railway Development Levy. Then, of course, there is the issue of taxation of the entry fees to national parks, and that tax being made to the to our government. And I wondered, you know, when you introduce a tax, it means you also introduce tax administration issues.
Yep.
And you also now have to have more accounting arrangements for this. So, and I wonder, why don't we just, if we want to add if we want to raise money, why don't we just increase the entry fee to the parks and remove the whole issue of taxation? Because again, if you make it, I'm not very sure whether they want to make it vatable, or whether it just, I think, is an excise duty that is also being imposed on this.
No, it's VAT from exempted to standard rate.
Now, if you VAT it now, it also means that now you bring the issues of claims, you know, and one is able also now to load all the other taxes or the other expenses and costs they also have.
Yeah.
So what that means is that then you have to now bring about the issue of claims on this, and it may not necessarily even raise the revenue for government. So I think this one we are complicating it more. So if we really wanted to raise more funds, and since all this fund is going to the number, the government number, the 222, why don't you just increase that with a certain percentage instead of now introducing the issue of VAT? So, and I thought again, how does that also work with our tourism sector? You know, it in a way is also going to make sure that we suffocate our local tourism, and also even the tourism that we have also with the even the tourists that we receive in this country.
Right.
So that to me was a challenge. The other issue which I also saw and I thought is also important to look at is we are saying that we are now going also to introduce VAT on hiring of helicopters, hiring, leasing, and chartering. Well, that's okay. But my only problem is with the exclusion of certain helicopters. And in my opinion, there is an exclusion of certain helicopters, to to me, that is a bit problematic because we needed then to specify what are these certain helicopters. Can we give the mix, the capacity, the color?
Is that when they say the national, the cabinet secretary shall gazette?
I mean,
what is exempted?
Yeah, if you look at again all these laws that you are making, including the business laws that you are making, there's the introduction of a new clause that the cabinet secretary is now given powers, and I want to look at it in this particular one also, because we are saying in these tax laws now we're also restoring the commissioner's authority to provide tax relief, you know, when necessary. Where it is not, where maybe they deem that they can't collect, or where they think there should be some exemption of sorts. And you know, this has been misused seriously. We have had where people who are high-ranking officers and serious government people are using those kind of loopholes to import things or to evade taxation.
Right.
Now, when you look at the business laws again, I think in almost all the amendments that you are making, we are also bringing about that issue of that the cabinet secretary now is given authority to decide what is exempted and what is not. And also, I think there's one particular business law I saw where the cabinet secretary now is given the authority to exempt certain services from certain levies. So that to me is a bit problematic. I'm also looking at the general issue of business law amendments, like the issue of raising the core capital for the banks,
right?
Yeah, from 1 billion to 10 billion within a period of 2.5 years. And I think, whereas that is also good to ensure that we are bringing stability in the market, but I also think it's also likely to introduce the hands of foreigners too much into our banking sector, or again cause mergers and consolidations. And we have an experience in the past.
They're not always good.
Yeah, and also there we also have experiences where people are being selfish also in these cases, whereby you are targeting this business, you're targeting this bank, you're targeting that one, and then what you do, you make a law. I mean, it has happened in the past. In the last 5 years, I think we saw that, where this kind of a proposal was passed. And what happened within the year? You saw mergers happening from this bank to the other, and a bank shoots all the way from level 3 to tier 1, you know, from tier 3 to tier 1. And I mean, one has also to be a bit critical on some of these. What are we really trying to achieve in this? Are we trying to just achieve stability and to ensure that the monies are secure for the customers, or are we achieving different agendas with this?
Okay.
So, yeah, but all in all, these business laws amendment have very good provisions. In some cases, they are making it easy for us to do business. But also in other areas, they are also a bit suspect.
Okay.
Like if you look at the issue of the Scrap Metal Act, I don't know what is so much interest in this act. This is one of the acts that is amended almost after every other 2 years. We had a major amendment, I think, in 2015. Again, we had another one, I think, in 2018. We had another one again in 2021, you know. And sometimes even some of the amendments suspend the earlier amendments or change. So there's a very interesting turn of events on this issue of the Scrap Metal Act. But nevertheless,
sounds like it's a serious, lucrative business, yeah?
I want to believe so. And people align it according to...
Yet the meaning of scrap is...
waste.
Yeah,
just scrap.
Yeah. The last amendment we had was so much on the issue of that we have a lot of vandals who are taking advantage. In fact, that time I think even the issue of scrap metal was suspended until the bill was, the act was again amended.
Okay.
But now I think we are amending the council that was brought about by the amendment in 2015. So very interesting views, or very interesting things happening with these bills.
Okay, yeah. I'll get back to you. So I've just done the math. Now, For you to go to the Nairobi National Park, you need to pay, if you're an adult, like all of us here, 400 shillings.
Yeah.
If you introduce a VAT of 16%, that will get you to 464.
Then you pay through e-Citizen, continue.
You pay through e-Citizen,
You pay a convenience fee,
50 shillings.
50 shillings.
50 shillings. What else do you pay? you're obviously, if you're using M-Pesa, Airtel money, or whatever it is that you're using, you also have to pay another level of convenience fee for the transaction fees on that side. For
the
children,
locally assembled tourist vehicles also are now going to pay 16%. So that cost is also likely to be transferred.
To the tourist.
Yes,
whether you're domestic or foreigner.
Yeah.
For children, if you're a resident,
before you leave there, as you're paying this to 222, then if you have to need data bundles, then again it's also subject now again to 20%.
The excess tax is going up.
If you make a mistake and you have to make a call again, it's also subject to. Yeah.
Okay, so in the end, you might have to spend some 600 shillings just for you to get in there. Children, 200 shillings. With VAT, that would be 232 shillings. Please note that. We're approaching December. 200 shillings per child. With a VAT, if this law becomes, if this proposal becomes law, that you'll be paying 232 shillings. If you're a foreigner, $35 is the much that they would pay. If you convert that with a rate of 130 shillings, that is 4,550. If you introduce the VAT of 16%, they'll be paying $40.6, converting to 5,278. That's a jump of more than 500 shillings. Actually, more than 700 shillings. For children, they pay for tourists from outside the country $20, and after VAT of 16%, that would be $23.2, converting to 3,016 shillings, up from 2,600, converting with a rate of 130 shillings. That's just about what is could happen should this bill become law. Alex, you said there are some good things in the bills.
Yeah. And I think we've been criticized in the past for not mentioning them. Yeah. So you have the increase in terms of the insurance relief from 20,000 per month to 30,000 per month, which is a good thing. You have the meal benefit if you have.
You mean insurance or pension?
Pension.
There's pension relief. No, there's both. There's insurance relief, which is increasing to 30K per month.
Yeah.
Then you have your pension if you are to withdraw. Also there's an incentive there that they are giving you to make sure that they don't tax you again when you are exiting, which is a good thing. You have the meal benefit for employees. If an employee is providing meals to our employees, they increase to 5,000 per employee per month from about 4,000 that we currently have. You have the increase if you're providing non-cash benefits, what perhaps you don't have to tax. Again, you're increasing it from 4,000 shillings to 5,000 shillings per employee. So these are very good things. And then you had about the treatment for SHA and how they're deducting it from your gross, then you remove SHA, then they tax for PAYE. All these are actually positive things. We do not see motor vehicle tax in this particular bill. We do not see the plan to require that Kenya Revenue Authority is exempted from Data Protection Act, like we saw it in Finance Bill 2024. That's a positive thing, which we need to also talk about. From a VAT perspective, you see, again, the government ensuring, when you connect, in fact, VAT and income tax, to say that now if you have, for example, credits in VAT, you have overpaid tax in VAT, you can actually use that to offset against an income tax liability for corporate tax, which is a positive thing. And I think people should hear about it. The other positive thing I see is, what? I think those will be about the positive things that I see.
Okay. Abraham, what are you seeing as either major or positive things from these proposals?
I think Alex has actually listed all the ones that I had pointed out.
Okay.
And just to add, I think for the tax-free threshold for contributions, they actually extended to the retirement benefit schemes, pensions, and provident funds as well, which the one now from 20,000 a month to 30,000. So I think that's also quite critical. And I think one which is relief would also be the contributions as on SHIF. Then post-retirement medical schemes as well, housing levy. So that seems to increase the take-home that people will have. What you take home as your disposable.
Which may be taken away by the other changes.
The other changes, yes. So if you look at on the other side now, we have the railway development, which we said increased from 1.5 to 2.5%. Then also some of the ones that we've talked about, locally assembled tourist vehicles, which are now going to be standard rated at 16%. Then exempting from zero rating to exempting of certain agricultural inputs, that will definitely cause the prices to go higher, and it means more. We have to dig deeper.
Sorry, say that again on agricultural products.
So from zero rating to exempt so they are being moved from zero rated to exempt of agricultural inputs, which we anticipate will have an increase.
But because raw materials also have also been exempted. So meaning, if I'm a manufacturer, I'm bringing in the raw materials, I'm exempted. When I sell, it's still exempted. So there's no tax expenditure there for anybody.
Yeah, so because they would not be able to claim the VAT on inputs at that particular point.
But it's not there. That's what I'm saying. The raw materials are not.
Okay, yeah. So that's actually that should be a benefit, yeah.
Yeah, it should be net so that you don't get charged VAT, and when you're also selling, then you also don't charge
claim.
VAT. I think that's the intention.
Yeah.
Will that benefit be passed on to the final consumer? We'll wait to see. I don't know if you know your local butcher. When it's about Christmas, and that's the season that you are heading to, they tell you that bei imepanda. Then you expect that in January, February, people are going back to school. We are no longer interested in meat. That the butcher will now reduce the price.
It doesn't come down.
It doesn't come down. Yeah? If you live in this country, it doesn't come down.
So Christmas is the season for raising.
So we hope that we hope that the benefit will be passed on.
Okay.
Yeah. Also other benefits maybe.
Just a moment. I just wanted to illustrate what exactly will happen to, once SHIF and housing levy become deductible. And I wanted us to use an example of a person earning 30,000 shillings. Do you have that slide? And so this is what is going to happen. Currently, the NSSF contribution is 1,800. And based on that, currently the taxable pay is 28,200 shillings. But once the bill becomes low, if it becomes low, the housing levy of 450 shillings will be deducted before taxation. The social health insurance fund of 825 shillings will also be deducted before taxation, meaning the taxable pay will go down to 26,925. Of course, at the end of the day, you're wondering, what is the benefit? You will save taxation of 251 shillings for the person earning 30,000 shillings. This is enough to pay for a child to go to the national park, even after the VAT charge of 16% is imposed. But anyway, the other slides that will be showing you of what will happen to salaries higher than that, of 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, and also 500,000 shillings. And of course, even the higher levels, you'll be seeing them shortly of what that would mean. But for someone earning 500,000 shillings, I think the tax benefit would be, after the changes, would be about 5,250. So it's quite something. So, Mushma, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, well, of course, I wanted to still bring about that benefit, which also is brought forward from the last finance bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, some of the people argue, why do you then have to tax me so much to give me a relief? You know, if you look at someone who is earning 500,000 shillings, as you say, they are going to get a relief of about 5,000 shillings.
Yep.
But in actual sense, they are also paying how much for the SHIF? They are paying
Yeah, the shift is 7,000. No, it's 13,750 shillings.
Could actually be almost 15,000.
Yeah. It is 13,750.
13,000. Yeah, 13,000. So if you're paying 13,000, then you're going to also pay another house levy of 7,500, the NSSF of 2,000. Then you get a relief now of 5,000. So I've had some of the people now having a problem with that. Why did you have to tax me this much, or even to collect so much from me?
So housing levy and shift combined is 21,000 shillings.
Yeah, so it's like...
which is a tax that didn't exist up until 2023.
Yeah.
So for you to get back 5,000 shillings, in any case, I mean, I see your point.
Yeah, so that's one of the areas. But anyway, the other issue that we have as a benefit on some of these other business laws, because I know all of them are going together, we have the issue of central bank now getting a bigger role in terms of oversighting the non-regulated lenders. So it's likely to help us more with the issue of dealing with predatory lenders. You know, those people who have been lending to these border people, and sometimes the loans never end, and they keep taking back their motorcycles. Of course, they are also going to have a more clear role in terms of oversighting the peer-to-peer lenders, the microfinance lenders, the non-deposit taking microfinance lenders also going to be put under the purview of and the oversight of the central bank. Those are some of the things that are going to be positive. But again, even this amendment to the business laws also are also introducing new levies. I hope that we have also noted that, like we have the Standard Act, which is empowering the minister to accredit, to appoint the inspection bodies in the countries of origin. Now, well, that happens all the time. So we have, like, if you are importing a vehicle from abroad, there is an accreditation or an inspection body that does it for Kenya, right, or for KEBS. Now, one of the arguments that I would bring on board here is why not use the accredited bodies in those countries to inspect, and then it's government to government, rather than to hire private inspectors to do that, which ends up adding a cost and sometimes also brings about a compromise, you know. So that is something that we seriously need to look at. The other issue is that...
But by the way, is the Finance Committee processing all these laws at the same time?
Yeah, although like now the Standard Act and the Kenya Accreditation Service Act, the Scrap Metal Act, there are quite a number of them that are not under the purview of the Finance Committee. They are being looked at by the
Tax
Trade
Procedures and Tax Laws Amendment Bill and Public Finance.
And the CBK Act. And,
no. I'm saying for the... Currently, because there are 4 bills. So Tax Laws Amendment Bill.
There are 10
tax
bills.
Procedures.
There are 10 bills.
Yeah.
There are tax amendment bills. But there are also other 9 bills or acts that are being amended through an omnibus of the business.
Which is fine. Mheshimiwa Kogusha, what I'm asking is, the 4 bills related to the taxes, they're being handled at the same time.
Yes. They are all being handled now by the...
Is that proper?
You see, these are omnibus.
What level of engagement would you have from the people in such a situation?
No, there's a week difference. There's a 1 week difference. So hearings for public finance management amendment plus the one for public procurement and disposal. So those ones are being had through the committee from the when is today? From the 22nd. So there are sittings that will happen on Friday and Saturday, and I think our firm is one of those that has been invited for that. Then for Tax Laws Amendment Bill and the Tax Procedures Amendment Bill, those ones, the hearings have already started. But again, the deadline for submission is actually the 29th of November. The first ones, the deadline for submission of comments to the committee is actually the 22nd in terms of written memoranda. So will they combine all of them perhaps when they go to the House? I'm not too sure, but from a public participation, which was your question, I think they have staggered them. So they give time for the public, the procurement one and the finance one to this week, and then the following week they look at the tax.
Well, I'm not very sure whether you're asking whether they are being heard the same hour, the same time, or you're asking during the period. Because one could be today, the other one is tomorrow, but the effect is we are handling all these before 29th of this month, and we will have dealt with all of these by 6th of December. So all of them are going on at this period of time. So some of them could be having a public hearing on one in the morning, the other one in the afternoon.
That's doable in the House?
Definitely. Why not? It's doable. Okay. But again, they are also loaded, too much loaded, and they have too much impact. And that is why I would have wished, and if you have followed my remarks before, we should have given these bills sufficient time. We would not have minded to come back to Parliament for a special sitting, during December holidays.
That's exactly what I'm driving at.
It's too much
because the level of detail,
within a very short time.
So much more. The level of detail, I mean, changes in VAT, one bill alone, changes in VAT, changes in excess duty, changes in management of pay slips and what have you. I mean, even the Kenyan to get involved, to understand it, to go to a county on one afternoon or one day to get feedback. I mean, it's
too much, actually.
And I think, actually, if you look at the one that happened yesterday, citizens are saying that we need more than just a week to look at these documents, not just one day where you come in and say, okay, so this is the document that we're going to be looking at. They need time to prepare, to understand what is being proposed within these particular documents. And we normally say when it comes to public engagement, it needs to move away from being cosmetic to people actually having information before the decision that is being made. So they get to interact with the documents, get to understand what proposals are being made. And therefore, when the committee comes for the public engagement forum, then they're able to engage at a level of information, as opposed to now just coming, showing up and approving or saying, okay, yes, public participation was conducted. But also if you look at the number, I mean, the issue around cost has been thrown around, but saying that these tax implications that have implications to every single citizen, and then you say you'd only do it in 6 counties. I mean, it also begs the question on, so what happens to the others?
Actually, that's a major issue. The issue of public participation being done only in a few counties. Like if you look at my region, the whole of Mount Kenya region, we do not have any public hearing going on from the committee. I have no idea, but your guess could be as good as mine.
I have no guess.
But the nearest, if you are in Nyeri County, or if you are in Kirinyaga, if you are in Murang'a, if you are in Kiambu, the nearest public hearing you could have attended was in Isiolo, which was done yesterday. So that selective approach to public hearings is also not very good, especially after we set a very good example of how public participation should be done when we were doing the issue of impeachment. We did it almost at the polling station level. So I hoped that that enthusiasm, in a record time, that enthusiasm again should be engaged, especially now because the members of parliament are also expected to be doing, and we shall be doing it in Mukurweini. We are expected to be doing public participation on the CDF, how the CDF money will be used in different areas. Probably we should also have loaded these tax laws, which I intend to do. We should have loaded this also in the public participation. But again, there is also a levy that I wanted to point out that is also coming on the issue of Kenya Accreditation Services Act. It is also introducing a levy. If you have an international body that is going to be accredited in Kenya, for every service that it offers, then it's also going to pay a 3% levy, accreditation levy. You get that is also going to be loaded again to...
What does that do to friendliness to business?
If for example, there are some exports you're doing and then they have to go through some level of accreditation, maybe by an international body that is based in Kenya, then there will be a 3% accreditation levy fee that is paid on the services that are offered by this accreditation body, which then will be passed to whoever then.
That's what I'm asking. Cost of doing business, what does it do to that?
Definitely it increases the cost of doing business. So whereas we're looking at generally making the ease of doing business in Kenya, there are certain levies and certain other things that we're introducing that are also going to be punitive. So what I'm saying is we need sufficient time as a country to be able to ventilate onto all these laws and the amendments that are being implemented at this particular time.
Okay.
And that is what I'm asking of our speaker also, to ensure that even if we have to come for a special sitting in December, I don't think there would be any problem. But members need to be given sufficient time also to understand.
Because once you take recess, you come back in February?
Yes, in February.
Okay, let's listen to the Cabinet Secretary as you spoke about the target of the government, which is in reducing the corporate tax and VAT.
We want to reduce corporate tax to at least 25%. We want to reduce VAT to 14% at least.
All right.
We want to reduce income tax pay as well. But we can only be able to do that if every Kenyan who is supposed to pay tax pays tax.
So reducing on one side, but also introducing a lot of levies, along the way. Let's take a look at the feedback that has come to us.
The only communication that can make sense from Badi is by introducing an amendment, lowering those taxes he's mentioning. That intention and aspiration to reduce doesn't hold water in Kenya. Are you getting?
Okay.
We say we all want to go to heaven, but we don't get to heaven today. So you can't tell us you want to reduce. But are you reducing? Give us an amendment in Parliament.
But there's a road to heaven.
Reduce. Are you getting?
There's a road to heaven.
The road to heaven can't be increase of VAT or VATable items, and then you say that you're reducing.
Okay, let's take a look. Okay.
It's a bit convoluted.
You might reduce it, but increase the VATable items. Let's take a look at the feedback. At Citizen TV Kenya, Sam Gituku, the hashtag to use is Citizen Daybreak. Your concerns and views this morning. No, where is it? I'm waiting for it so that we can read it.
Okay, and maybe as it comes...
Here.
Okay.
Yeah, Samuel, what you're saying that... John Badi, our brother from broad-based government, is very clever. He has increased VAT on bread so as to enable Kenyans to take more of healthier food like sweet potato. No, I don't think this is factual.
No. Yeah,
it's not factual. Yes. Sawi, you're saying that Kenyan politicians often use political parties as tools to whip members into advancing their agenda, pushing unpopular opinions on the populace. We must promote the election of more independent candidates who prioritize serving Kenyans with integrity and honesty. Independent, okay. Again, you're saying, as a country, we must raise some taxes for the most vital government functions to work. The incentives are to save in order to support our infrastructure and not consume. That is Samuel Owoth who is saying that this morning. Engineer Lazaro, churches should first of all confess their mistakes of taking tribal sides over political issues. They did grave mistakes by letting holy pulpits to be used as a campaign platform to insult each other during campaign periods. And Sir Nixon Duguri is saying that, dear patriotic leaders, anybody who gets upset or expects you to say yes all of the time clearly doesn't have your best interest at heart. You have a right to say no when necessary. Be at peace with your decisions. Now, gentlemen, it's 8:06 a.m. I am doing disservice to the next segment, which Safina Cheng Oma will be here to lead. Thank you, Alex Kanyi.
I think I just wanted to highlight where people are sending the public comments on the two laws, because I think that's extremely important. So I encourage people to send their comments on the two tax bills to the Finance Committee NA at parliament.go.ke. The deadline is Thursday, 28th November at 5 p.m. And there'll also be physical sittings at KICC on these two bills from Monday, from Monday 25th November to 28th November from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it is good that people actually get involved in terms of sending their comments. Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you, Alex Kanyi from CDH Kenya, and Mheshimiwa John Kagusha from Mukurweini. All the best as you process this in the House, and Abraham Ocheng from Bajeti Hub for making time for us. My name is Sam Gituku. See you again some other time. Bye for now.